Welcome back to the Play On Footy YouTube channel. Today we're going to be rounding up the round 12 games that happened on the weekend. It was an exciting sort of round. I think there was a lot of, tired bodies out there I found, especially in the last quarters of a couple of games, which we'll mention. For the tips, I did go okay. I got the Port versus the Blues right. I tipped the Blues. For the Pies versus Bullies, I tipped the Pies, I believe. So I got that tip wrong. For Hawks and Crows, I tipped the Hawks. For the Eagles and Saints, I tipped the Eagles, unfortunately. And for the next game, I got the Cats and Richmond. In that game, I actually tipped the Cats. That's right. And the Demons and Dockers, I tipped the Demons. I mean, that was a demolition. That one, unfortunately. And the next game was the Suns and the Bombers. I tipped the Bombers, so I got that one wrong, unfortunately, but overall it was a good round. So yeah, the first game was Port versus the Blues. In this game, I was pretty amazed at how much leeway Walsh got. Nobody tagged him. A couple of weeks back, they versed the Swans, the Blues, and he was heavily tagged by James Jordan, I believe. But yeah, he ran rampant, got 34 touches. JHF got a goal and 2 behinds. I think JHF, with Rosie out, really has stood up, but he's really seen as a great inside forward option for Port. I mean, they've got Georgiades here. He kicked 4 goals, 1 in that game. I think it's fantastic to see. But apart from that, Marshall's been really quiet, except for the North Melbourne game and kicked 5 goals. But yeah, I think, for JHF and Georgiades to stand up, I think it was long overdue, in my opinion. But in addition to that, they had Soldo come back in the ruck, and he got 31 hitouts. TDK was coming in for Pitternet. He got 28 hitouts, so not far off. But it was a good duel, the ruck battle that game. Soldo didn't get as many touches as TDK. Both kicked a goal and a behind each. But I think overall, it was good to have him back in the Port team. I know in AFL Fantasy, some people traded in Jordan Sweet, which was probably not a wise decision, given that he only played 1 game, and the other game he was supposed to play, he was sick. The next game, we are going to have a look at the Pies and the Bulldogs. This game here was an interesting game. I think for the incident with Sam Darcy, I mean, he got reported for that sort of late hit on Maynard, which was sort of karmic in a way. If you think back to the Brayshaw incident last year, he got let off that incident and was able to play in the grand final thanks to Eddie Maguire. But yeah, the Bullies got up, so that's fantastic for Luke Beveridge. He was in a lot of, heat in the media, whether he should keep his job. That was following the Hawthorn loss, but when you see Hawthorn's trajectory, they've been pretty good team under Sam Mitchell. So I think that loss was unfortunately on the other side of the Hawks coming up, where a lot of the competition was like, where did that come from? So apart from that, there was Sanders that was subbed on for James Harms. So he got 72 AFL Fantasy, so that's good for him. And his sort of case to stay in the team, I think he should stay in the team as well. Bont got 2 goals, 38 touches. Jack Crisp, 5 touches. And Bailey Dale, 35 touches as well. Darcy Cameron, 51 hitouts. I mean, he's an option as well for AFL Fantasy to get him in your team. He's doing really well, and that was against Timmy English, who wasn't too far behind actually with hitouts. I think he was on 48 hitouts for that game. But really, it was the last quarter dominance by the Dogs that got him over the line. It wasn't an arm wrestle of a game, but it was that last quarter the Bulldogs were really banded together, and it was Sam Darcy that was leading the charge. I mean, Jamari Ugle-Hagan, he's not really standing up in that forward line, because you got to remember, Norton's out. Once he comes back in, I just don't know where he's going to be slotting into it all. But you've also got Rory Lobb, who's come in, and he's really, I think he's on to his next club this year. He'll be looking for his 4th club. He will most likely go to North Melbourne, I'd suspect. But yeah, not ideal for Rory Lobb. There must be something wrong with the bloke. But yeah, I think overall, the Bullies, if you're a Bullies fan, you'd be happy with that game. Next game is the Hawks versus the Crows, 107-80. Matty Crouch, 35 touches. More for Hawks, 5 goals, 1. And Hinge down the back for the Adelaide Crows, 31 touches. The first half, they just went missing, the Crows. I don't know what happened. It was just a game where they were asleep at the wheel, and I feel like that's been the story thus far, except for the one game Adelaide played against the Blues where they, won by 2 goals, really on the back of an error from Mitch Owies, is it? Owies? Yeah, Mitch Owies from the Carlton Blues. So that was unfortunate for the Blues. They shouldn't have lost that game. But yeah, the Crows, their season's well and truly over, just like the Eagles and North Melbourne and Richmond, of course. So any win from here on in is a bonus for those clubs, in my opinion. But yeah, the game in itself, the Hawks were just dominant. They were using the ball through the corridor a lot more, and they were a lot more efficient by foot. Didn't really use it much by hand, in my opinion, but by foot they were really good. Had a lot of good run and carry from Newcombe, Day, those guys. Even Ginnivan was really stepping up as well, and having an impact as well as he should. So yeah, overall, I think if you're a Hawks fan, you'd be enjoying the trajectory that the club is on at the moment. And so yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they go against the Giants. So I actually think it's at the ground in Tasmania. I think Hawks may be primed for an upset because they play really well in Tasmania. And the Giants, even though they're coming off the break, sometimes clubs that come off the break aren't switched on enough. So they could be primed for an upset, the Hawks. Next game was the Eagles versus the Saints, 68-82. I tipped the Eagles, and unfortunately for me and some other people who I'm sure tipped the Eagles because they are relatively strong at home. The incident with Harley Reid and Darcy Wilson has left the AFL world in some sort of disbelief. I guess you got Sam Darcy that got rubbed out, and then you had Harley Reid get rubbed out for unruly behaviour. The sling tackle for Harley Reid, and obviously that late hit on Maynard for Sam Darcy. But it was an arm wrestle of a game. I mean, Mason Wood kicked 4 goals, 22 touches. Windhager tagged Reid pretty heavily. Reid still got 20 touches, but Windhager did very well on him, and probably just really shook him. I think he's never been tagged before. It really got to him emotionally, which is not a good thing, but he's learning. So he's still young at AFL level, so he'll learn from that, no doubt. Jinby did really well. It's probably his best game of the season, 20 touches, and really stood up in Harley Reid's sort of tagged absence, which was good to see from the club. Flynn in the ruck for Eagles, 31 hit-outs, did really well against Marshall. I think Marshall got 10 more hit-outs, so 41 to Marshall. And overall, it was just one of those games where it just got away from the Eagles, unfortunately. Next game was Cats versus Richmond, 99-69. The last quarter, Cats kicked 5 goals to zip. So, look, the Richmond Tigers really took it up to them. And, I mean, if you're a Richmond supporter, at least you're not getting blown away like Eagles did last year and the year before that. So, I think in that aspect, it wasn't bad viewing. It was just the last quarter they just couldn't hold on. Nank Tank, 51 hit-outs, unbelievable. I think he got 143 AFL fantasy. That's a very good result. Baker, 1 goal, 31 touches, and Ollie Dempsey, the rookie mate, 3 goals, 27 touches, unbelievable. I think he got 104 AFL fantasy or whatever, but it was a great game on the Richmond front. I believe the Cats, I mean, I don't know what's going on with them at the moment, but yeah, there's some things that probably need to be ironed out. They're still sitting 3rd on the ladder, so it's not like Mayday panic stations, but they're not my favourites to be playing in the grand final or to win the grand final this year. I'm still sort of supporting, Greater Western Sydney, those two teams. I think they've got a stronger case. But yes, we'll see at the back end of the year with injuries and whatnot. Next game was the Demons and Dockers, 49-141. It was a demolition, this game. Second quarter, it was 1 goal to 6 goals in favour of Freo. Third quarter was 2 goals to 7 goals in favour of Freo. And the last term was pretty conclusive, 2 goals to 4 goals in favour of Fremantle. The players that stood out to me was Clark for Freo, 1 goal, 36 touches. Luke Ryan down back, as always, 28 touches. And Max Gawn, he's Mr. Fantastic, isn't he? He's always leading from the front. Gawn, 1 goal, 23 touches. It was just a one-man band, that game. Even though you've got Petrarca, who always tries out, his hardest. It was just worrying signs to me because this is a time, if the loss to the Eagles wasn't bad enough, you lose to Fremantle in Darwin. I know it's not in your home turf, MCG, even though it's supposed to be, you know, as a fixture, a home game for Melbourne. It was just diabolical. Like, honestly, there are warning signs there for Melbourne and Simon Goodwin, and you've got to be absolutely kidding yourself if you don't think Melbourne Demons have a cultural problem. In my opinion, Joel Smith is just the scapegoat for Simon Goodwin's betting, bullying, and drug taking behaviour. And I just think that with the drug scandal that was raised by MP Andrew Wilkie, nothing's been done or said about that. It's just been swept under the carpet by the AFL. But this is a club, and I'm sure there's other incidences outside of the Melbourne Football Club, but this is a club that really should have been, in a better position with what they've got. And unfortunately, they're on the downhill slide at the moment, and they've definitely lost their identity. And going forward into this year's finals campaign, I've got a massive asterisk against Melbourne Demons at the moment. And this game definitely didn't help their cause at all. And the last game of round 12 was Suns versus Bombers. 91 to the Suns and 80 to the Bombers. It was an arm wrestle of a game. Suns are really good at home, as we are aware now. Anderson, Merritt and Flanders got 33 touches each, and Matty Rao got 11 tackles. Absolute beast of a man. And honestly, I think Sam Walsh was another person that got pretty high tackle count this round as well. I think he got around 12 maybe against Port Adelaide. But yeah, Suns are ones to watch with, with Dimmer at the helm, and I think he's really leading the case as possibly the coach of the year if Brad Scott doesn't take it out for the Bombers. But yeah, what do you guys reckon? What was your favourite match of round 12? Comment down below, like and subscribe, and I'll see you with the predictions video next.